Evening, Draftaholics, and welcome to Draft Punks. My name's Sam.
And I'm Adrian, and this is your pre-release primer and draft guide for Dominaria United.
Magic is going home with a return to everyone's favourite plane and home to one of the best limited formats of all time.
That's right, everyone is back on Dominaria.
Well, not everyone. Jaya's dead.
No, Sam, we talked about this. We're not making jokes about Jaya. It's very sad.
Oh, sorry, you're right. It was a tragic slip of the tongue.
Anyway, we're back on Dominaria, but with some spooky Phyrexian shenanigans going on in the background.
But in the foreground, we've got what is looking to be a sweet new limited format, and we're going to show you what you're going to need to know to crush your local pre-release and first drafts.
So let's start with the themes for each individual color.
First up is White, which is all about going wide, using cards like Captain's Call to create creature tokens, which you can then pump up with Charismatic Vanguard, or use to make Argivian Phalanx cheaper.
And you can also use your creature tokens in a new way by using the Enlist mechanic. Whenever a creature with Enlist, such as Coalition Sky Knight, attacks, you can tap another non-attacking, non-summoning sick creature to add that creature's power to Coalition Sky Knight. Kakor!
Blue, in a massive departure from normality, is all about spells.
That's right, fill your deck with cheap instants and sorceries like Impulse, a favourite of Magic Boomers like Sam, Essence Scatter, and Impede Momentum, and then profit off of them with cards like Founding the Third Path and Volsh Tide Turner.
Now, speaking of, the sagas in this set have a new twist. Read Ahead allows you to choose which chapter your saga starts on. So are you the kind of player that likes to squeeze every bit of value out of your cards? Or do you like to cheat and get straight to the good bits?
Now, Black is going to be doing what Black does best in this set by killing everything in sight, and then bringing everything back from your graveyard to make your opponent have to live out their nightmares over and over and over again.
And speaking of nightmares, can we talk about how sick that art on Braids' Frightful Return is?
Okay, well, once Sam is done drooling, he's going to be filling his graveyard with the mill on Eerie Soul Tender and using it to fuel gigantic, cheap, writhing necromancers.
Red in Dominaria United is all about planting its balls directly onto the wall and building red-hot, blinding fast aggro decks to knock your opponent out as quickly as possible.
And you can accomplish this with fan-favorite Lightning Strike, which is back to make everyone sweat when going to 3 or less life, and aggressive Enlist creatures like Yavimaya Steel Crusher and Balduvian Berserker.
If you're playing green in Dominaria United, you're not just playing green. You're going to be playing as many colours as possible thanks to Domain. Cards with Domain have effects that scale with the number of basic land types among lands you control, up to a total of 5. These include the power on Nishoba Brawler, or the boost on Sunbathing Rootwaller and Gaia's Might.
Now, in most limited sets, this would require running lots of different basics. But Dominaria United has a 10-card cycle of dual lands with 2 basic land types, meaning that your green-red deck can run a Plains with Radiant Grove, an island with Tangled Islet, and a swamp with Haunted Mire.
So we reckon that the Domain decks in Dominaria United are going to play out like the Snow decks from Kaldheim, where the typed duels will be really high picks, meaning that you will incidentally have lots of splash capacity and can hence play all the best cards from every colour. So go on, get greedy. You deserve it.
Now, let's take a look at each of the 2 color archetypes. Each color pair has 2 legendary signpost uncommons, 2 kicker cards at common, and 2 kicker cards at uncommon.
In Blue-White, Wrath Weatherlight Stalwart and Tura Kennerud Sky Knight combine the blue and white themes by creating creature tokens based off spellcasts.
Kicker is an optional cost that you can add to your spells to give them additional effects. Blue-White's kicker cards are all spells that interact with your opponent's spells and creatures. One of the new themes in Blue-White is stun counters, which say that if a creature would untap, you instead remove a stun counter. Stunning.
So putting all this together, with Blue-White, you're going to be playing a spells-based tempo game that interacts with your opponent's creatures while creating a large board of tokens and flyers to finish your opponent off.
In Blue-Black, both Rona, Sheoldred's Faithful, and Vohar, Vodalian Desecrator slowly and painfully drain your opponent out when you have a deck filled with instants and sorceries.
Some of these spells will include interaction, like Tribute to Urborg and Rona's Vortex, or card draw, like Phyrexian Espionage. Blue-black also plays with Black's Self-Mill Graveyard theme with Monstrous Warleech.
Overall, blue-black looks like a powerful control deck that can lean in many different directions, with spells matter, graveyard, and draining subthemes.
Black-red is a friendly colour pair, filled with peace and happiness. Okay, it's actually about violence and death. The colour pair is filled with aggressive creatures and benefits for when those creatures die.
Like Garner, Bloodfist of Keld, who lets you draw cards and ping things when your creatures die, while Lagomos, Hand of Hatred, provides an infinite supply of fodder for you to throw into the red zone and allow to die for fun and for profit.
The kicker spells play in the same territory, with Enthrall to the Pit being a temporary steal and sacrifice built into one card, Warhost's Frenzy being a temporary pump effect, Aggressive Sabotage being a goddamn blightning, and Balduvian Atrocity being an aggressively costed temporary reanimation creature.
Overall, Black-Red looks aggressive, with blatant disregard for the life of its own creatures. Welcome to new Phyrexia, I guess.
I hope your balls are still planted firmly on that wall, because green-red is aggro. Rara Coalition Warlord points to a sprinkling of Domain in the green-red aggro decks, while Rulik Mon's Warren Chief is all about spewing out goblin tokens.
But really, this archetype is full of aggressively statted creatures and pump spells. Yavimaya Iconoclast is your choice of a 2-mana 3/2 trample or 3-mana 4/3 trample with haste. Viashino Branch Rider is the best raging goblin you've ever seen, while Colossal Growth is a powerful and flexible pump spell.
It's possible that there is a ramp build of green-red, as Rulik Mons and Sprouting Goblin play with lands a little bit, but we think aggro is going to be the much more common build with our warty green friends.
Do you like it big? Do you like it wide? Do you like impossible to pronounce card names? Well, if by it you mean green-white in Dominaria United, boy, do we have good news for you. Queen Alanal of Ruadark turns the white token creation up to 11, while growing monstrous herself in the process, while Zar Oginin, Scion of Afrava, puts +1/+1 counters on all or most of your team every time he attacks.
Green-white's kicker cards all help you to go wide, like Scout the Wilderness, go tall, like Shalai's Acolyte and Juniper Order Rootweaver, or both, like Strength of the Coalition. This will make green-white very difficult to combat, as your opponent will often be distracted by your large monster while you are quietly making a giant army that you will pump up all at once out of nowhere.
You know what Magic really needs? What it's really been missing? How about Soul Warden stapled to Blood Artist? So check out Elas Il-Kor, combining the sadism and pilgrimage genres into a hot new sound that's got everyone going crazy.
Black-white takes white's lovely go-wide theme, and then decides to, feed all of the tokens to the vicious Phyrexian blood machine. And nobody does that better than Aaron, who sacrifices creatures for the benefit of the rest of the army.
Likewise, Phyrexian Warhorse can make more tokens but then sacrifice them for a temporary benefit, and Banalish Sleeper turns your tokens into disposable fodder for sacrificing.
Black-white also has a reanimation subtheme, which you can see on Phyrexian Missionary and Shieldred's Restoration.
Blue-red is slinging spells and ringing bells.
That doesn't make sense.
With Balmor Battle Mage Captain looking very strong, enabling your entire board to get value from your spells, while Najal the Stormrunner turns your sorceries into instants and also lets you copy them for a price if it attacks.
Blue-red's kicker cards all kick a punch.
That doesn't make sense either.
Either bouncing your opponent's creatures, drawing cards, dealing damage, or all of the above.
Putting all this together with blue-red, you are going to be slinging endless spells and getting tons of value and pump effects for your team to go and smash your opponent right in their stupid little face.
If you're playing green-black, you're going to want to put all your cards
in the bin
with legendaries like Turg, Spawn of Turg, caring about the number of lands in your graveyard, and Bortuk Bone Rattle, reanimating creatures with mana value up to your domain count, or returning them to hand if you don't have enough land types yet.
The kicker cards in green-black are kicking it old school. They are all about removal and graveyard interaction, but are not afraid to make their way to the combat step with our good friend the Bog Badger giving your whole team menace. Scary.
So if green and black are your jam, go ahead and stick those cardboard rectangles directly in the garbage bin where they belong. You won't regret it.
If you feel the need for speed, red-white is the color pairing for you in Dominaria United, with cards such as Tori de Avenant Furry Rider making sweet, sweet love to the combat step. Meanwhile, Baird is back and better than ever, making a 1/1 soldier every turn if you control a creature with power greater than its base power. Enlist anyone?
Meanwhile, the kicker cards for red-white are downright dangerous, with damage and pump effects being flung left, right, and center, as well as the Keldon Strike Team vomiting an entire hasty army onto the battlefield.
So if you're playing red-white in your Dominaria United pre-release, be safe in the knowledge that you will have plenty of time to go and get yourself a kebab in between each of your rounds.
Land ho! Blue-green is all about lands in this set, with old friend Tatiova making your lands into 3/3s with flying, and Nail Avazoa Aeronaut getting to dig up to 5 cards deep with help from Domain to look for a land, and if you have all 5 land types, you draw a card.
The kicker cards for blue and green are all their own individual tickets to Value Town and will have you drawing cards, ramping, making copies of your creatures, and fixing you for additional colors and basic land types.
So overall, blue-green is about lands, domain, lands, usurping the value throne and declaring yourself the one-true king of Value Town, and lands. This set has something for everyone. It's got spell slinging, sacrifice, lands matter, tokens, unpronounceable legendaries, and most importantly, it's got balls stapled to walls.
So whether you're stapling some balls to a wall, rooting for the crew of the Weatherlight, or you're a monster like Sam and rooting for the Phyrexians, this set is going to be sick. And as always, we're going to have our first draft video of the new set out the day the set releases. So if you can't wait to get your fix of Dominaria United done draft punk style, all you need to do is remember what to call a werewolf on YouTube.
It's a like and subscribe.